What's up, y'all? Welcome to another successful Sunday. And I'm, of course, your host, Coach AJ. Today, we're going to be diving into how to create a 2025 action plan. And the point of this session, is to get a clear idea of how to create an action plan, how to implement it. Because I want you to think about it for a second. What if there was a few goals that you didn't meet this year? And it wasn't the fact that you weren't disciplined enough, it was possibly the fact that you didn't have the strategy to keep going, right? Like we didn't adjust, we didn't take a peek, we didn't reflect. What if it's just the fact that we needed a better plan? So today, by the end of today's session, today's live, you're going to have a clear idea of how to create an action plan, a 90-day action plan, so that you can start implementing all your goals starting today. We're not even waiting until 2025 rings in. We're starting today. So, as always, y'all, let's go ahead and let's get right into it. I do invite you to go ahead and download the free guide to follow along. It's a free PDF that you could download. It's in the link in the description below. Go ahead and download that because we're going to be following along. It's important to look at that guide to get an idea of how to set up your own action plan going forward. So I'm just going to pull it up and we're just going to follow through with it. If you haven't, go ahead, download the guide in the description below and we're going to follow straight through it. Because, yeah, yo, we're not no longer just creating goals and not implementing them. We are creating goals to actually achieve them. And I actually used this exact same plan and strategy this year where I wrote down the goals I wanted to achieve this year and then I actually wrote a plan, but the key part to it, which we'll talk about in steps, is also reflecting as well. So let's go ahead and start off with, and you can follow along as you open up the PDF. Let's go ahead and start talking about clarifying your goals and the importance of clarifying your goals. Because once you set the goal, it's important to have specific goals because that is your foundation for success. That right there is like your milk and butter. Like that is the most important thing in your foundation to succeed. Now I want you to start thinking about your long-term vision, the big picture, and then your short-term goal as an actionable pieces that bring that vision to life. So take a few minutes and I want you to brainstorm. Ask yourself, what are three key areas where you want to see progress in the next 90 days? Okay, what are three key areas that you want to see progress in your life in the next 90 days? And why are these goals so important to you? And I want you to write them down on a piece of paper, or if you have it in your phone, put it in a notepad. But as you write, focus on the goals that align with your values. It's so important for you to focus because we could set goals and have resistance because it's just not aligning with our values. Just like how we could be in environments which also could tailor to our goals. And we may find ourselves having a resistance or a kind of a pushback because it's not matching our values. So it's important when you're setting these goals to have them match your values and what is your bigger purpose for that goal, because this alignment will keep you not only motivated but it'll keep you inspired when challenges do arise, because challenges will arise no matter what we do. Life will be lifing, people will be people, and there's nothing much we can do about it. So it's important to have a plan in place when those moments you're feeling unmotivated, uninspired, and you don't want to continue. This is part of creating the action plan. Now, in the PDF, you'll see where it says goal clarity. In that section of the worksheet, I want you to write down three goals. Okay, three major goals that you've been thinking that you want to accomplish within the next 90 days. And why are these three goals, like, why do they matter to you? Why are they so important to you? And again, you want them to match your values. So I'll give you a few minutes to go ahead and just do that. If you haven't already, again, go ahead, download the PDF. If not, you could always download the PDF after the fact. No biggie at all. So I'll give you a few minutes to just kind of write down the three goals and why they're important to you. I'm just having a sip of some peppermint coffee because it's delicious. And at the same time, just remember to vision those goals and also kind of like gain an idea of like why they are important to you. Because actually having the visualization of why the goals are important, it's like a very key ingredient to it all. Because oftentimes we think, Okay, I've set the goal, it's cool, but like why is it so important to you? What makes this goal so important? And at the end, I'm gonna give you a little bit of a bonus that I do, and I'm thinking about a way of how to incorporate it into next week's live, which is going over a vision board. So make sure you guys lock into that next Sunday, 7 p.m. on here right on YouTube. Okay. So now that you've written down the goals and why they're important to you, now we're going to break them down into milestones. Okay. So I want you to think about sometimes when you're facing a big goal, how it can feel a little bit overwhelming. And it could also, again, you find resistance because it just feels like it's so much for you to do, right? It's great writing it out, but it's a little bit different when you actually start implementing them, right? So that's why breaking them down into smaller actionable checkpoints and smaller actionable steps that can make the progress more measurable, right? So that you don't feel so overwhelmed. And it's good to map out a monthly milestone or monthly steps for each of these three goals. So again, ask yourself, what specific progress do I want to achieve each month to achieve this goal? Like, what is it that I would like to achieve each month to achieve these goals? Now, as you create like your milestones, which is the second half of the PDF, if you haven't downloaded again, you can always go back and download to do this and follow along and watch this after I upload it. As you create your milestones, keep them realistic and attainable. All right. Keep them realistic and attainable. It's good to work within the realms of where you are at. And that's again like meeting yourself where you're at, right? Versus meeting yourself where you're not at. It's good to like work within your realms of where you are because we sometimes throw away how the small wins build momentum over time. When you think about like a car engine, right? Or anything that has an engine, if you take away one key piece of it, the engine may work for a few seconds, and then what happens? It just you're not that car's not moving. It's just not moving, right? But if you place that little screw or that little bolt or that little piece of pipe or sometimes even just like some sensory tape, right? Then your car is totally fine. So it's important to think about those small wins build momentum over time. Now, in that portion of the worksheet, I want you to fill out the milestones in the milestone planning section of your worksheet with the key checkpoints for each of your goals. What are the key checkpoints for each of your goals? Because sometimes when we are thinking about the new year ahead, we forget like these little tiny spaces or tiny steps are so important, right? So I'm even wondering like, and I've asked people this all the time, when was the last time that you actually celebrated a small win? Or when was the last time you actually celebrated even like a big win? We achieve the goals and sometimes we forget like the small win is so important to celebrate. I'll give you a few minutes for that while you write in your milestones. And again, if you're not too sure, you don't have 3 goals, don't even worry about it too much. You could always come back to this as well. You can always download this again to get another copy, or you could just redo it and write on a piece of paper. However, it's good to keep this PDF with you as you go along. So now let's talk about planning a weekly creating a weekly plan. And because now that you have the milestones, you have the goals, you have the milestones, the steps that you want to take, the little seeds. Now that you have those milestones, it's time to break them down into weekly tasks. I did this year and it was probably one of the reasons why I was very successful in terms of achieving my goals. And I broke down all of my goals. So I write out all my goals around this time before the new year. So I've already done it for 2025. I write down all of my goals and then I take those goals and I break them down. Okay, how do I want to achieve this one? Da, da, da. How can I do that? And by breaking them down, I break them down, which you probably heard me say, I break it down per month and then I break it down per week. And then each week at the beginning of the week, like a Sunday, I start writing out what are my goals for this week. So then each day I'm just taking, okay, I'll try to work on this today. I'll try to work on this. I didn't finish that. That's how you get that momentum going. So I want you to start with the milestone and ask, what can I do this week to get closer to achieving that? Like, what steps can you take this week to get closer to achieving the goal that you are setting for the next 90 days? Or one of the goals, right? Now we need to focus on the tasks that drive the most results. Because instead of sometimes we do the smaller task or we do the mundane task, but sometimes you got to do the task that will bring the most results. And that's how you could pop in what I love to say, which is the next one, time blocking. Maybe you need an hour to do this, 30 minutes, and then you just hone in on completing said task for 30 minutes a day or an hour every Wednesday and just having that in your schedule every week and or however you need to meet yourself where you're at so that you can accomplish that, right? Again, we're focusing on the 1% per day. We're not just focusing on jumping in feet first. It's just building that momentum over time. Now, I want you to write down in the weekly planning area of the worksheet, write down your top 3 tasks for the first week and then identify your non-negotiables. So before we go on, I want to really talk about non-negotiables. Non-negotiables are so important because these are the things that you're going to do no matter what. So I'll give you an example of my non-negotiable. My non-negotiable is to work out about 2 to 3 times a week, no matter what. 30 minutes minimum. If I go over, cool, but it's 30 minutes minimum. And by having that non I have a list of non-negotiables. I also make sure I read 30 minutes a day. I listen to my podcast and another podcast once a week. So I give myself maybe I'll listen to my podcast every Tuesday and that it comes out every Tuesday. And then I also listen to someone else's podcast that helps me or makes me feel like if it's entertaining, whatever the case, once a week. And another one I have is spirituality. So it's meditation every day, it's prayer every day. And I'm even going to throw in there journaling every day. These are my non negotiables. And I set these non negotiables as something that's going to benefit me in the end and also help me maintain. So there's two sides of it, one to help me maintain and one to also benefit me in the long run. Very important to have non negotiables that work for you and again, meeting yourself where you are at. Because many of us will set non-negotiables that don't work for us. It's like setting a goal and expecting yourself to achieve it, knowing that you're not in the mental space maybe to do it in this season. Maybe you're not in the mental space to do it in the first quarter, but perhaps you could do in the second and the third or the fourth, right? Remember, there is 4 quarters in a year. So you could break down your goals in so many ways and achieve them. I break them down per quarter and by doing that, I've been able to achieve majority of the goals that I've set throughout 2024. That's why I'm sharing this action plan with you because I actually implemented them implemented an action plan this year and it was quite successful. But I also was very, again, going back to number one, I was looking at it in a sense of we have to create one that's actually attainable and measurable to where I am in my life, not one that's not matching the values and not attainable where I am. Next step is obstacles, right? Because again, life will be lifing. We're going to be facing obstacles. So it's important to actually have steps and, and a plan if things were to happen. So if you're a parent and you know that, okay, these are the goals that I'm setting. What if one of my kids gets sick one week? How am I going to deal with it? It's important to have some type of step, right? Now, of course, life is lifing. It happens. You may not always be able to have a step, but even if you have something to some degree, it does help. So I'll give you an example of one thing that I've learned is having an accountability partner, whether it's my partner, friends, siblings, whatever. If I say, "Hey, I'm working on this. I need your little extra push and a little nudge in my behind," these people I know I could count on. They're like, "Yeah." So I'll give you an example. My brother and I, we get up every morning at 6 a.m. to work out, except now I've broken it down a little bit. Um, and literally, he will text me the night before, "Hey, we're good for 6 a.m." Yep. We're good for tomorrow morning. Absolutely. He calls me in the morning. I say, All right, I'm up. Let's go." And we work out. Mind you, we live in two separate homes, but it's just a way that I know he's keeping me accountable. I'm keeping him accountable. And having that backbone helps a lot. And because I believe because of that, I've been able to be far more successful in a lot of the things I've achieved by just having people hold me accountable. Another step you could do is habit trackers, whether you write out or you create like a Google sheet, super easy. You could download one, you could buy one, you can have an app that's free. the habits that you want to work on and just clicking them every day as you work through them. Personally, for me, I write everything out. It works, but I know apps work for people. Actually, have like a check, like a Google sheet. I've tried that once, but for me, I realized I like to actually put pen to paper and write out. Yep, we did it. Check. You can use your notepad. These are all free. I like free. I don't know about y'all, but I like free. And the last one, which I want to say is the most important thing when it comes towards us going through creating a plan, it's important to reflect. So I reflect once a week. Typically, it's on my Friday or Saturday. I take a step back, or even sometimes Sunday, as I'm like writing out my goals for the following week. That's why I say like Sundays are so important, and that's why I call this successful Sundays because we're trying to be as successful as we can be in the week to come. Go over your what you've accomplished that week. Reflect, adjust, and pivot as much as you need. This part is so important because again, going back to what I said at the beginning, if you're finding that you're working on something and you feel like it's discipline's not the issue, check your strategy. Like what if it's not discipline? What if it's not even the consistency aspect? What if it's just a strategy? Like you know how they say like do the boring stuff? I say, yeah, you could do the boring stuff, but eventually you can find your little like groove to how you like to do the quote unquote boring stuff. Because the thing is, it's not really boring. It may be a little bit boring at first, but over time, you find yourself just enjoying it because now you've created a strategy that you can find a way to pivot and enjoy it, right? So ask yourself weekly what worked, what didn't work, what went well, what didn't really go as planned is another way you could put that. And what would you do differently next week? So I want you to think about something right now. Like think about the week that just passed. What worked? What straight up did not go as planned? And what could you have done differently? Whether it's how you made a move, how you pivoted, how you responded to someone, or to a situation, having those moments where you can just kind of like reflect is those moments you get to recalibrate. Is those moments where you get to adjust and those are moments you get to pivot. That to me personally is the most like I know it's the last step, but it's probably the most important step because we can lose momentum by just simply saying, okay, it's not working. I'm not going to do it versus just adjusting and moving around and saying, "Okay, if this is not working for me, maybe I can enter this, maybe I can move that." So I want you to think about your plan. Again, it's in the description. Go ahead and download it. It's 90 days. Stay committed to it. Stay committed to it for the next 90 days. But again, remind yourself that it's okay to take a step back and reflect. It's okay to pivot when you need to and to work within your values. Make sure that it's measurable and attainable that you can achieve it, the goals that you're setting. That will give you a successful 2025. Now notice I only did the worksheet for 90 days because I I'm all about breaking it down into smaller steps versus just dumping it into a pot or something we call pepper pot and making it like a whole bunch. No, let's take down the smaller steps and break it down bit by bit. So that's all I got for you guys today. I appreciate you for logging on for those who came on and checked it out. If you haven't or if you're watching this after the live, go ahead, download the PDF. It's completely free, no charge. And start thinking about how you can create a plan for the next 90 days. Because although like we haven't screamed Merry Christmas or Happy New Year or any of that, we can still start planning and we can still start implementing certain steps and making change in our lives. So again, y'all, my name is Coach AJ. I appreciate you for locking in another Sunday. Don't forget to come through next Sunday. It's vision board. I'm going to try to figure out a way that I can show you on Canva how to set up your vision board. And I hope that I can figure it out. I'm going to try to test it out this week because I want you guys to come with ideas. Think about the goals that you wrote out from last week or this week. Think about the action steps. And now we're going to get into creating the vision board. And there's one activity that I definitely want to do with you. Oh, the bonus. Um, you know what? I'm gonna do it for next week because it works coexist together. But don't worry, it's gonna be Kevin, thank you for popping in again, no doubt. I will see you next week. Come through 7 p.m. Eastern time. We're gonna be doing vision boards and we're working on that. I'm gonna see if I could set the mood, get some music going, try to figure out this YouTube thing. But I appreciate y'all. I hope you all have a fabulous and dope week. Walk with peace. And of course, y'all, walk with love.